My ex-boyfriend dumped me for a promotion. In a fit of fury and heartbreak, I ended up with a guy 8 years younger than me. My younger man, Ethan, was devastatingly handsome with a wild streak, but with me, he'd purr and plead softly, docile as a kitten. Ava, he'd whine, nuzzling close. Look how they bully me just because they're older. I'd glance over at my ex-boyfriend, currently doubled over on the ground, and the sniveling other woman sobbing nearby, and remain pointedly silent. Ava, please skip work today? Just stay here with me, Ethan murmured, his warm arms wrapping tighter around my waist. His cat-like eyes blinked, his warm breath tickling my ear. Ethan was still in college. I'd met him during a campus recruitment drive when he was just a freshman. He'd boldly asked for my contact info and we'd chatted occasionally since then. After my ex cheated, I ran into Ethan at a bar where I was trying to drown my sorrows. One thing led to another. I gently pushed him away now, slipping out of his embrace and coldly, efficiently getting dressed. Don't be ridiculous, Ethan. I have a critical meeting today. As I got out of bed, Ethan grabbed a pillow and hurled it violently onto the floor. A flash of irritation sparked through me at his childishness, but I bit back the retort, swallowing my annoyance for now. Once at the office, I meticulously arranged the presentation materials in the conference room. This meeting was crucial. It would determine which team landed the major new project we were all vying for. As team leader, securing this project was non-negotiable. The bonus alone would be substantial. Returning from a quick makeup touch-up in the restroom, I walked back into the conference room to find my carefully prepared documents completely soaked. Water pooled across the table. Oh, Ava, I'm so sorry, Stella cried, standing there with flushed cheeks and glistening eyes. I was just trying to be helpful, getting you some hot water for when you speak. I didn't mean to spill it, I'm so clumsy. Stella, the little snake who'd slithered her way into my relationship with my ex. Stella, I said, my voice dangerously low. You could have poured water any time. Why right now, right on top of my presentation? Colleagues began trickling into the room, their eyes immediately taking in Stella's tear-streaked face and my icy glare. I knew exactly what they'd whisper behind my back. Ava, the bitter team leader, bullying the poor, innocent newcomer. Seeing the audience gather, I clamped down on my anger and stopped arguing. I silently wiped down the table while Stella let out a choked sob and fled the room. Moments later, Marcus, the director presiding over the meeting, and my ex-fiancé walked in. Stella shot him a tearful, meaningful glance as she rushed past. The meeting was about to start, but I lived by the motto, always have a plan B. As team leader, I always prepared both hard copies and digital backups. Thanks to my solid proposal and confident delivery, I successfully secured the advertising project for Aurora Beverage's new drink line. After the meeting, Marcus formally assigned the project to my team. He knew I wouldn't screw it up. As I walked past him, he leaned in and murmured, "Getting angry isn't good for you. Stella is still learning, try to guide her more." The sheer audacity. The man cheats on me, promotes his mistress, and then asks me to mentor her? I shot back sweetly. Oh, I'm sure she learns much better under your personal guidance, director. Straight into his bed, no doubt. I wasn't about to let Stella get away with it. After the meeting, I went straight to security to request the conference room surveillance footage. I needed proof that she deliberately destroyed my materials. But security informed me the recording for that time slot had already been deleted. Only the director had the authority to do that. No further questions needed. 5 years ago, Marcus and I were a couple. We joined the company together. I'd handed him a winning project proposal I'd developed, allowing him to leverage it for his promotion to director. After he got the position, he proposed and we got engaged. I truly believed we were a power couple, ready to build a solid future together in this city. But barely a year into our engagement, shortly after Stella joined the company, I found a pair of her expensive Balenciaga stockings tucked away in Marcus's suitcase after one of his business trips. Marcus begged me to stay, pleaded that it was a mistake, but I ended it immediately, without hesitation. I have zero tolerance for betrayal. He'd forgotten his promises, the vows he made when he proposed. He discarded me. He tried to frame it as a common mistake, a moment of weakness where he was tempted but ultimately pulled back. He had no clue how deeply he'd wounded me. After securing the new project, I convened a team meeting and sternly addressed Stella's unprofessional conduct, without mentioning the sabotage directly. Stella spent the rest of the afternoon with her head down, crying silently at her desk. Later, I overheard Stella talking in the restroom with colleagues known to be my rivals. "Stop crying, Stella," one said dismissively. "Ava had backups, didn't she? The meeting wasn't affected. She's just dragging it out. Honestly, she's just an old hag, jealous of your youth and beauty." Stella sniffled. "Please don't say that about Ava. It really was all my fault. And she's not that old. Crow's feet are already showing and she's still such a tryhard." The colleague sneered Sandal. "Ava works so hard, the stress must be getting to her," Stella added, pretending to defend me while subtly reinforcing the old narrative. I waited until they left before emerging from the stall. After work in the parking garage, I saw Stella and Marcus standing close together. Her eyes were still red-rimmed. Marcus gently stroked her hair, his smile tender. Stella managed a watery smile back, looking pitifully endearing. What a picture of devotion. How touching. Some people in the office were even shipping them as a couple. No one knew Marcus had once been mine. Our relationship had been kept secret at the office. Marcus had always insisted on maintaining professional distance. I turned sharply, got into my car and sat gripping the steering wheel, my fingers trembling as I fumbled for a cigarette. I dialed Ethan's number. "Where are you?" "I'm coming to find you." I threw my arms around Ethan's neck, pulling him in for a kiss, but he suddenly turned his head away. "You smoked," he accused, his voice sharp. "I told you not to smoke. It's bad for you." He stubbornly kept his face averted. "No kisses if you've been smoking." His brow furrowed tightly, radiating disapproval. A wave of misery washed over me, and my voice softened. "Just be nice to me tonight, Ethan. Comfort me." Hearing the vulnerability in my tone, Ethan's expression immediately softened. Those cat-like eyes of his shone like jewels. "It's rare to see you like this," he mumbled. "You're going to kill me with sweetness, Ava." He sat up straighter, cupping my face to kiss me properly, but I turned away again. "Am I getting old, Ethan?" He pulled me into a hug. "What's wrong? Did someone say you're old?" I just nodded silently, burying my face in his chest. Ethan erupted into a furious rant, the words tumbling out fast and sharp, his voice rising as if ready for a fight. "You're only 29. If that's old, then is she some kind of prehistoric cave woman?" I couldn't help but laugh despite myself. Ethan seized the opportunity, gently pinching my cheek. A bold move he'd never dared before. Always so careful not to displease me. In our dynamic, Ethan was always the cautious one. I sighed, letting my exhaustion show for just a moment. Instantly, Ethan wrapped his arms around me from behind, his hands starting to gently massage my shoulders and temples. "Let me help you relax," he murmured softly. "Is this better?" I closed my eyes, melting into his touch, letting him soothe away the tension. As he worked on my shoulders, he kept murmuring near my ear, "Ava, I like you. I like you so much." I didn't respond. Seeing no reaction from me, the brightness in his eyes dimmed momentarily. But then, after a brief internal struggle perhaps, he grinned again, holding me tighter. Later, after things had calmed down, I told him, "Work is going to be incredibly busy for a while. I probably won't have much time to see you." Ethan's arms tightened around me almost imperceptibly. He let out a low hum of understanding, or perhaps disappointment. "Do you need money?" The moment the words left my mouth, Ethan stiffened as if shocked by static. "I'm not some kept boy," he protested fiercely, his voice tight. "I have money, Ava. Lots of it. Enough to support you even if you quit your job tomorrow." He enunciated each word sharply, as if afraid I wouldn't believe him. Seeing my expression harden, he immediately deflated, his anger vanishing. "Ava," he pleaded softly, putting on his most pitiful expression, "I promise I won't bother you while you're working. But could you maybe just text me back when you have a spare moment?" I thought of his usual barrage of messages and calls and hesitated. "Ava, are you awake yet? Ava, what are you having for breakfast? Let me order it for you. Ava, I don't have classes this afternoon. Can I come see you? I'll bring lunch. I heard about this amazing place for pork trotter rice. Let me bring some over." College life seemed incredibly leisurely for him. He messaged me constantly throughout the day. Now, he gently tugged at my little finger, waiting patiently for my answer. "Okay," I conceded finally. "Every evening. I'll video call you for half an hour." The instant I agreed, I was showered with eager, grateful kisses. To ensure the project's success, I informed my team we'd all need to work an hour later each day for the time being. The sooner we nail this, the sooner we get our bonuses, I announced during the team meeting. And once the bonuses are paid out, I'll apply for team building trip funding for us. The previously glum faces around the table instantly lit up with cheers. A little pressure followed by a reward always worked wonders for morale. I caught Stella's eye. She nodded repeatedly as I spoke, putting on a show of being obedient and attentive. Our team finally completed the project ahead of schedule and exceeded expectations. The general manager called me in personally to offer high praise. The project generated significant profit, and I felt confident that a promotion was finally within reach. Rumors had been circulating in the office about upcoming position changes, and I was certain my name was at the top of the list. When the GM announced a company-wide meeting, I walked into the conference room with confident strides. In recent days, colleagues had subtly fished for information, making envious remarks about my anticipated smooth sailing up the corporate ladder. I'd laughed them off politely, maintaining my usual caution despite my inner certainty. During the meeting, the GM began. Ava's team did exceptional work on this project, and Stella in particular showed outstanding potential. After careful deliberation, the company has decided to promote Stella to planning team leader. Moving forward, she will work closely with Ava. Stella? How? Why? I had conceptualized, planned, and led the execution of the entire project. Stella's contribution amounted to fetching coffee and delivering printouts. My spine went rigid, but a chilling wave of disbelief and bitterness clenched my heart. The GM invited Stella to say a few words. She pulled out a prepared printout and beamed as she read her acceptance speech. So she'd known about this all along. Glances were exchanged around the room, suddenly filled with unspoken meaning. After the meeting, the company hosted a celebratory dinner. At the table, Stella was the center of attention, showered with congratulations. I sat silently nursing my drink. The same colleague who'd badmouthed me in the restroom earlier now raised her glass with a laugh. Stella, turns out the general manager is your uncle, huh? Stella covered her mouth delicately. Yes, she murmured sweetly. My mom asked my uncle to let me gain some experience here. Understanding dawned on everyone's faces, followed by a fresh wave of effusive praise for Stella. Stella, you're so impressive, achieving so much right after joining. Yes, truly. Stella contributed immensely to the project's success. I kept drinking, ignoring their fawning. But peace was short-lived. Another colleague called out, Ava, you mentored Stella, didn't you? Tell us what you think of her performance. Before I could speak, Stella chimed in smoothly. I wouldn't be here today without Ava's guidance and support. Thank you so much, Ava. Let me toast you. Behind the gleaming wine glass, her smile was gentle, but it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. As she leaned in close to pour more wine for me, she whispered venomously, for my ears only, Not so high and mighty now, are you, Ava? When she straightened up, her expression instantly reverted to its usual soft, innocent mask. Something inside me snapped. I stood up abruptly. The cheerful chatter around the table died instantly, all eyes fixing on me. Couldn't lose control here. Forcing a smile, I said, Think I've had a bit too much. Just going to step outside for some fresh air. I walked out onto the restaurant's balcony. The cold wind hit my face, clearing my head slightly. I quickly, discreetly wiped away the tears that had pricked the corners of my eyes. Pathetic. Getting played by this little schemer after all these years. Ava. A deep voice spoke from behind me. I turned. It was Marcus. He looked good, his sharp features softened by time, projecting an air of maturity and depth. He walked over to stand beside me. I knew about her relationship with the GM from the start, he said quietly, his voice even. That's why I kept pushing you to mentor her. I turned to him, forcing a dazzling, brittle smile. So, the plan was for me to kiss the mistress's feet to secure my own promotion? Is that it, Marcus? You know there was nothing serious between us, he insisted calmly, without a trace of shame. She planted those stockings in my luggage. She was the one pursuing me. That night she went to your hotel room, I stated flatly, the old argument resurfacing, but this time without the hysteria, just a dull ache. You let a woman who was actively pursuing you into your room. You didn't refuse her. I was past the point of pain now. Marcus sighed. Ava, nothing happened between us that night. Why can't you let it go? You weren't in my shoes, Marcus. You'll never understand how much it hurt. Even now, approaching 30, the familiar sting of betrayal could make my chest tighten, bringing tears dangerously close. Ava, don't cry. Marcus stepped closer, instinctively reaching out to wipe away a tear I hadn't realized had escaped. I used to cry easily when we fought. He'd always dry my tears then, murmuring, "Don't cry, Ava, it breaks my heart." I jerked my head away, dodging his hand. Since the breakup, I hadn't cried. Not really. No one was worth my tears anymore. "I'll never cry over trash like you two," I said, my smile becoming sharper, almost predatory. Marcus's face turned ashen. I couldn't forgive him. I had helped push him up the ladder, but success had changed him. He'd been tempted by Stella's manufactured sweetness. That momentary wavering had destroyed everything. He still didn't get it, still clung to the fantasy that I was the same naive woman he could easily coax back. I looked at him with something akin to pity. "Marcus, give up the fantasy. We are well and truly over." He stepped forward, reaching to grab my wrist, but just then Stella appeared on the balcony, wine glass in hand. Her hair was slightly mussed-making. Her look appealingly disheveled, perhaps slightly drunk. She tilted her head cutely at Marcus. "Ava, Marcus, what are you two chatting about?" Marcus's expression shifted instantly, a polite smile appearing. "Nothing important. You've had too much to drink, Stella. You should go back inside." Stella pouted, pressing a hand to her forehead. "Oh, my head feels so dizzy." She swayed dramatically, pretending to lose her balance. Suddenly an idea sparked. Time for a little payback. I took a sharp breath and, without warning, let myself fall straight backward. A pair of strong hands instantly caught me, steadying me around the waist. I looked up into Marcus's anxious face. "Low blood pressure acting up again?" he asked with concern. I didn't answer, just glanced sideways at Stella, who was now leaning against the railing, her face a mask of thunderous fury. Marcus wanted to take me to the hospital. I refused. It was all an act. Why would I need a hospital? I didn't care how Stella cried to Marcus later. The injustice of the evening left a bitter taste. Back at my apartment, feeling furious and raw, I called Ethan, telling him to come over. He hesitated on the phone. "Ava, I don't think I can make it tonight." Before he could finish explaining, I just said, "Oh," and hung up. Such a waste. I just showered and even put on expensive perfume. Ethan must have sensed my displeasure. A few tentative messages popped up on my phone, testing the waters, but I ignored them. For me, Ethan was just a boy I called when I was feeling low. A distraction. So why did the ache in my chest seem to deepen slightly? I pulled a beer from the fridge and started drinking. Later, deep into a drunken haze, I heard the click of the fingerprint lock on my front door. Oh right. Ethan had sweetly asked to register his fingerprint last time, and I'd agreed. I blearily looked up to see Ethan's handsome face looming over me. He looked like he'd run all the way here. His forehead was damp with sweat. I grabbed him, pulling him down, and playfully clamped my teeth onto the top button of his shirt. "You came after all?" I mumbled. "Couldn't help myself, could I?" he replied, his voice laced with feigned grievance, those cat eyes looking watery and wronged. Feeling mischievous, I held up my half-finished beer. "Here, drink with me." He turned his head away, muttering under his breath, "How much have you had? You're completely wasted." His refusal only fueled my drunken perversity. In a moment of recklessness, fueled by alcohol and anger, I tipped the remaining beer over his head. "Drink with me," I demanded childishly. Ethan, now drenched and smelling strongly of beer, swiftly pulled off his soaked white shirt. He grabbed my waist, pulling me close. "Ava, you're such a little brat sometimes," he growled, though there was no real anger in his voice. Drunk and unrestrained, I asked him bluntly, "Do you love this brat?" "I'm your dog, Ava." "Only yours," he murmured, holding me tight. Later, I vaguely remember being gently led to the shower, washed, having my hair dried, and then being carried to bed. I expected to wake up to a disaster zone after my drunken antics, but the apartment was spotless, everything tidied away. Ethan, however, was gone. He'd left a note on the bedside table in neat handwriting. "Bought you KFC for breakfast. Chin up, Ava. You've got this. Go get him." The forced cheerfulness wasn't quite his style. I could almost picture him writing it, blushing furiously, maybe even grumbling under his breath. I had to admit I was becoming dependent on Ethan, maybe even developing real feelings. But then, unexpectedly, he stopped contacting me first. My own pride kicked in and I gave him the cold shoulder too. Still, every evening, when I came home to the empty apartment, I couldn't help but remember Ethan holding me, his voice husky, whispering, "Ava, you're so soft. How can you be so soft?" The memory alone made my cheeks flush and my fingers itch to call him. Finally, one day I couldn't stand it anymore. I caved and messaged him first. "Why haven't you contacted me lately?" His reply was instantaneous, bold and passionate. "Because I don't want to be just your tool, Ava. I want to be your partner. I want to be loved. I want to be chosen, truly chosen by you." His words struck a chord of guilt. We'd been seeing each other for a year, but never formally defined the relationship. Ethan had brought it up before, but I'd always deflected, unwilling to commit, afraid of the responsibility. But still, a woman my age shouldn't be played by a younger guy. I decided to surprise him at his university. I knew his schedule and waited for his class to end. Amidst the bustling crowd of students, Ethan stood out instantly, tall, fair-skinned, with a lean, athletic build and that unique blend of wildness and boyish charm. A young girl stood opposite him, smiling flirtatiously, playfully trying to snatch the cap off his head as she chatted. Ethan looked annoyed, his expression bordering on hostile. He kept dodging her attempts, his tone sharp. "Don't touch me. I have to go. Get out of my way." The girl looked flustered, on the verge of tears. I quickly walked over. The moment Ethan saw me, his harsh expression melted into one of warmth and relief. He immediately rushed to my side. "Don't be so rough with girls, Ethan," I admonished gently. "It's rude." He lowered his head, muttering defensively. "I tried being nice at first, but she just wouldn't take the hint. I lost my patience." "Still not okay," I said firmly. Ethan grumbled under his breath. "I'm only gentle with you." Noticing the girl still standing there looking lost, I walked over to her. "Ethan is my boyfriend," I told her kindly. "You're a lovely girl, and you deserve someone who will cherish you properly." The girl's previously crestfallen face lit up, her eyes sparkling. "Wow, you're really beautiful," she exclaimed. Impulsively, I handed her the bouquet of flowers I'd bought for Ethan. There was something about her, a vulnerability that reminded me of Ethan himself sometimes. After soothing the girl's feelings, Ethan stuck close to my side as we walked away, still looking slightly put out that I'd given his flowers away. He fidgeted with his keychain in the car. I reached over, placing my hand over his, playing with his fingers. "Let's make up," I said softly. "Do you admit I'm your boyfriend now?" Ethan asked solemnly, his eyes wide with anticipation. "Yes, I admit it." The moment I confirmed it, Ethan's face broke into a radiant smile, his cat eyes crinkling into crescents, revealing faint dimples. After sitting in the car for a while, Ethan said, "Ava, I'm starting my internship soon." He hesitated. "The reason I couldn't come over that night, my dad came to town to arrange the details." "Is that so? Well, good luck with it," I encouraged my new official younger boyfriend. He just smiled enigmatically. I had no idea then that he was arranging a rather massive shock for me. Now that Stella was my equal in rank, she immediately started trying to win over the team, ordering coffee and afternoon tea for everyone, compared to me making them work. Late, she seemed thoughtful and kind, while I looked harsh and demanding. Ever since the company passed me over for the promotion, my heart hadn't really been in the job. Marcus noticed my detached attitude and called me into his office. Ever the perceptive one, especially where I was concerned. He sat back in his chair looking stern. "Your attitude has been very unprofessional lately, Ava." He leaned forward, placing his hands on my shoulders. "The board members are visiting for an inspection. Take this file over to the chairman's residence. The GM asked me to handle it, but it's a good chance for you to make an appearance." Frankly, I was glad for an excuse to get out of the office and away from watching my former subordinates kiss up to Stella. I took the file and drove to the exclusive residential area where the chairman lived. It wasn't far, still within the city limits. I found the address and rang the doorbell of the large villa. A man opened the door, the chairman, presumably around 60, hair dyed jet black, impeccably dressed in a suit. I respectfully handed him the file, which he began to flip through. Just as I was about to turn and leave, a figure descending the grand staircase caught my eye. My jaw dropped. It was Ethan, toweling his damp hair. Seeing me, his eyes lit up. "Ava!" he called out. bounding down the remaining stairs like a nimble panther. He grabbed my hand and turned excitedly to the chairman, who was still reading the file. "Dad, this is my girlfriend." My face flushed crimson. Heat flooded my body, a wave of embarrassment and shame washing over me. I desperately wished the floor would swallow me whole. Ethan was just a college student, wasn't he? He'd never mentioned his family background. His father was the chairman of the parent group that owned our entire production company. My first thought wasn't elation or triumph but sheer panic. I need to quit. Immediately. How could I possibly stay? The boy I'd been treating somewhat casually, the one I'd bossed around and vented my frustrations on, was the son of my ultimate boss. The chairman lowered the file, his sharp eyes scrutinizing me for a long moment before his expression softened into a warm smile. "Well then, why don't you join us for lunch?" "Oh no thank you, I still have work to do," I refused hastily. "Dad, Ava and I will go out for lunch," Ethan interjected smoothly, already pulling me towards the door by my arm. "We can have a proper family dinner with you, Mom, and my brother for the Mid-Autumn Festival." He clearly sensed my panic and discomfort at the prospect of lunching with the chairman right then. Once outside, I was speechless. Ethan looked at me guiltily. "I'm sorry, Ava." He felt bad for blurting out our relationship status. Without my consent, especially given the circumstances, knowing it would unsettle me. He was always acutely sensitive to my moods. I remained silent, my face grim. Ethan watched me, wanting to say more but holding back. "Ethan," I finally said, stopping and grabbing the fabric of his shirt. "Ava." If he'd had a tail, it would have been wagging furiously. I stood on my tiptoes, cupping his face. He immediately bent down, making it easier for me. I gave him a soft, brief kiss. "After this kiss," I said quietly but firmly, "we shouldn't see each other again." Ethan reacted instantly, wiping his mouth roughly with the back of his hand. He grabbed my arm. "Ava, no. That didn't count," he protested, starting to whine and act like a spoiled child. My expression grew colder, and his grip on my arm gradually loosened. His eyes reddened. "Are you really leaving?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. I didn't answer. I turned, walked to my car, got in, shut the door and started the engine. As I pulled away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Ethan was standing rooted to the spot, head bowed, scrubbing at his eyes with his hand. Tears streamed down my own face then. Ethan and I, it wouldn't work. I was already falling for him, developing real feelings. I needed to cut it off before I got in any deeper. Back at the office, the general manager summoned me. He lounged in his chair, legs crossed, while Stella stood beside him looking smug. "Ava," the GM began, his tone condescending, "you've been with the company a long time. You seem tired lately. The pressure must be getting to you. Why don't you hand over your portfolio of VIP clients to Stella? Now that she's team leader, it'll be good experience for her, and it'll lighten your load." So this was the next move. Stripping me of my most valuable clients. I poured my heart and soul into cultivating those relationships, sending personalized gifts for birthdays and holidays out of my own pocket, even tutoring one client's son in English for a month straight. These weren't just clients. They were my hard-won allies, my power base within the company, and he wanted me to just hand them over. This wasn't about lightening my load. It was about removing my leverage, my safety net. But he was my boss. Swallowing my fury, I tried reasoning. "Sir, these clients are all high-profile individuals. I have the longest-standing relationships with them. Switching their point person abruptly might make them uncomfortable." The GM took a languid drag from his cigar. "Stella is perfectly capable of managing them. Just give her the files. That's settled. Have Stella meet with the Icebark Beverages representative next week." As I walked out of his office, Stella followed, her voice dripping with false gratitude. "Ava, thank you so much for building such an amazing client base. You've really set me up for success. You absolutely must teach me your secrets for communicating with them." She sounded so appreciative, as if I'd willingly gifted her the fruits of my labor. Infuriating. Stella really knew how to twist the knife. Just outside the GM's office, we ran into Marcus. Stella's eyes lit up, and she immediately rushed over to report her triumph. "Uncle told Ava to give me her client files. All the VIPs. She couldn't resist adding another jab at me. I wanted to ask Ava how to handle the transition, but she seemed too busy to talk to me. Before Marcus could respond, Stella's gaze flickered past him, and her expression brightened further. "Oh, who's this little cutie?" she cooed, stepping towards a young man standing behind Marcus and playfully tugging the drawstring of his hoodie. The cute young man was none other than Ethan, my recently dumped, or so I thought, boyfriend. Ethan recoiled sharply from Stella's touch. Marcus rubbed his temples wearily. "Stop teasing him, Stella. He's a new intern the company just hired. I'm assigning him to your team." "Oh great. You'll be working with me then," Stella chirped, beaming innocently. She puffed out her chest slightly, tilting her chin up in a display of youthful confidence. Unfortunately for her, she was flirting with a brick wall. Ethan's intense gaze shot straight past her, locking onto me. I quickly averted my eyes. Marcus, ever perceptive, subtly stepped between Ethan and me. "Stella, why don't you show him to his desk? Ava and I need a quick word." Stella opened her mouth to protest, but a warning look from Marcus silenced her, and she reluctantly led Ethan away. Marcus approached me, his long legs covering the distance quickly. "Director, is there something you need?" I asked formally. He stopped beside me. "Make sure you properly train Stella on client communication," he instructed quietly. "Handle the handover professionally." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Stella moving up is good for both of us, Ava." "Right." Marcus couldn't wait for me to be sidelined, pushed out. He probably hoped I'd quit in frustration, allowing him to swoop in like a savior, offer to support me and lure me back into his orbit. After 5 years together, I knew exactly how his manipulative mind worked. Back at our desks, Ethan was assigned the workstation directly opposite mine. He didn't even pretend to work. He just sat there, chin propped on his hands, staring at me intently. His gaze felt physical, like little hooks I couldn't escape. Ignoring his blatant attention, I tried to focus on my work. After a few minutes, I felt something repeatedly tapping my leg under the desk. I glanced down. The little brat was nudging my shin with his foot. Just as I was about to reprimand him, Stella returned from the director's office. Whatever Marcus had said to her had clearly upset her. She'd been in there for half an hour, and her eyes were red and puffy like a rabbit's. She put on a brave face, however, calling out brightly to the office, "Everyone listen up for a moment." I knew what was coming, her usual tactic of buying favor with treats. "Since it's my first official day as team lead, coffee is on me." Ethan suddenly stood up, cutting her off smoothly. His youthful voice was energetic and appealing. The colleagues, easily swayed, readily agreed. Stella tried to recover, teasing playfully, "Wow, Ethan, so generous on your first day. I'll have to order something expensive then." When the coffee arrived, everyone else collected theirs, but Stella remained seated, waiting expectantly, clearly hoping Ethan would personally deliver hers. The last cup remaining, Ethan walked over and placed it directly on my desk, his little finger deliberately brushing against mine as he handed it to me. All the coffee was distributed. None for Stella. She walked over to Ethan's desk, her tone halfway between joking and serious. "Hey, looks like you forgot one." Ethan glanced up lazily. "Oh, the one you wanted was too expensive, team leader," he said innocently. "Didn't think you'd mind missing out on just one coffee, right? You wouldn't mind, would you?" I handed the VIP client files over to Stella. She immediately focused on contacting the most prestigious client, the matriarch of a major conglomerate whose lifestyle brand was looking for a new campaign. This was Stella's golden opportunity, handed to her on a silver platter. She insisted I accompany her to the client meeting, deliberately trying to rub my nose in it, wanting me to witness firsthand how she was climbing the ladder using my connections. I just smiled serenely and played along. For the meeting, I deliberately wore my old engagement ring, the one Marcus had bought with years of savings. He'd knelt before me then, swearing, "Ava, I'll be your knight forever, protecting you through thick and thin." Knights apparently could waver. This client's empire was vast. Marcus, wanting to ensure everything went smoothly for Stella, insisted on driving us personally to the client's private dining room. He hadn't initially approved of Stella bringing me along, but seeing the ring on my finger seemed to change his mind, perhaps feeding his delusion that I was just acting out, trying to make him jealous before eventually returning to him. Stella noticed Marcus's frequent glances at my ring. Her smile remained sweet, but as we got out of the car, she deliberately leaned on Marcus, asking him to escort her into the restaurant. "Director Gu, could you possibly offer me your arm? I'm not used to these high heels." And it would be dreadful to stumble at such an important meeting. Ah yes, the perfect picture of a gentleman and his lady, I commented dryly, presenting a united high-end front for the company. Stella, assuming I was just jealous, smirked faintly. Marcus, his expression darkening slightly, escorted Stella inside and then left. He wasn't part of the actual pitch presentation and couldn't overtly take credit for Stella's anticipated success. Our client was a woman in her 50s, elegantly dressed despite her understated clothing, who greeted us with warm cordiality. As soon as we were seated, Stella launched eagerly into her pitch, using slick business jargon. Regarding the brand theme, I proposed passionate love, focusing on the sweetness and intimacy of couples in the throes of romance. The client's warm smile slowly faded, her expression hardening. Finally, the smile vanished completely. "Ava dear," she interrupted pleasantly, "could you fetch me a coffee, please?" "Thank you." By the time I returned with the coffee, the client had calmly poured her glass of water all over Stella's meticulously prepared proposal documents lying on the table. "This concept is entirely unsuitable," the client stated flatly. "Go back and revise it." Stella returned to the company in tears. "Actually, no." She'd burst into tears right there in front of the client and fled the private dining room when her proposal was doused. I was left to smooth things over and placate the client. Giving Stella the VIP files meant nothing without context. The files contained basic information: family background, addresses, contact numbers. They didn't detail the client's nuanced preferences, personal histories, or emotional triggers. That information wasn't in any company database. It resided solely in my head. Plan B always. I had deliberately placed this particular client's file right at the top, knowing Stella would gravitate towards the most established, seemingly stable relationship. This client had a long history with our company and had always shown a certain fondness for Marcus during their interactions. Marcus, too, would likely steer Stella towards this client, thinking her easygoing. What Marcus didn't know, or perhaps conveniently forgot, was the foundation of that fondness. This client had built her empire alongside her husband from nothing. When I first started working with her, seeking common ground, I'd shared a little secret. That Marcus and I were a couple, working our way up together in the big city, showing her a picture of him. This shared vulnerability created a bond. The client saw echoes of her own journey with her husband in our story, hence her warmth towards Marcus. So when I showed up wearing the engagement ring, and Stella arrived literally clinging to Marcus's arm, the astute client immediately understood the dynamic. Later, when I accidentally dropped the ring into the wash basin in the restroom and left it there, after she saw me wearing it, the message was clear. Stella was the interloper, and this client despised infidelity. Furthermore, the passionate love proposal Stella presented wasn't the safe option Marcus likely advised. It was, in fact, my best concept for a different campaign entirely, one I'd casually mentioned in passing which Stella had mentally logged and stolen, eager to claim my strongest work as her own. The brand Stella was pitching for? It was created by the client's husband to commemorate their silver wedding anniversary. A passionate love theme couldn't have been more inappropriate. Driven by both emotional outrage and professional offense, the client immediately called the board. Of course, I knew Marcus would ultimately clean up the mess to protect the company's relationship, so I wasn't worried about lasting damage. After calming the client down, she retrieved my fake ring from wherever she'd found it and handed it back to me. "Look forward, dear," she advised gently. "Thank you, Mrs. Shun," I replied sincerely. "I will. The real ring. Sold long ago." Heh. Back at the office, Stella was sobbing at her desk. Everyone else had conveniently disappeared, likely avoiding the drama. I walked in, clicking my heels purposefully perhaps, smiling a little too brightly. My good mood must have been obvious. Stella looked up, her eyes red and blazing with fury. "You're enjoying seeing me fail, aren't you?" she spat. "Yes," I replied cheerfully. "So much so, I could eat 3 bowls of rice for dinner tonight." My blatant satisfaction, so different from my previous subdued tolerance, seemed to confirm her suspicions. Convinced I had orchestrated her downfall, Stella lunged at me, aiming to scratch my face, grab my hair. Her sharp nails went straight for my eyes. If she disfigured me, I wouldn't be able to handle client meetings either. She wanted to drag me down with her. I dodged quickly. As we grappled awkwardly, a sharp voice roared, "Stop it!" Stella froze. Marcus had arrived, followed by curious colleagues peering around the doorway. He immediately stepped between us, separating us. Just then Ethan burst in carrying 2 lunch containers. Seeing me and Stella disheveled on the floor, he dropped the containers deliberately, aiming them so they landed squarely on Stella's desk, splattering sauce all over her designer handbag, and rushed to help me up. Payback felt good. Ethan quickly checked me over. "Ava, are you hurt anywhere? Let me take you to the hospital." After I assured him I was fine, he instinctively positioned himself in front of me, facing Stella with the fierce protectiveness of a guard dog, his expression cold and menacing. Those usually playful cat eyes were now narrowed, hard, and assessing. Marcus frowned, watching Ethan shield me. The general manager arrived, alerted by the commotion, his face thunderous. "What is going on here?" he bellowed at Marcus. "Who started it?" Marcus hesitated. It seems there was some kind of disagreement. Before he could finish, the GM cut him off sharply. "I asked who started it. Don't give me excuses." The implication was clear. Whoever threw the first punch was solely to blame. I looked at Marcus calmly, waiting. Ethan stood slightly beside me, gently smoothing my hair, which had come loose during the scuffle. His fingers, acting as a makeshift comb, felt cool against my neck as he carefully tucked stray strands back into place. I flinched slightly at the cold touch, and his movements became even more deliberate, almost reverent. But I saw the storm brewing beneath his lowered eyelids. Stella sat sniffling on the floor, one high heel kicked off. The GM didn't need Marcus's answer. He shot Marcus a meaningful look. He clearly intended for me to take the fall for the entire incident. "Ava," Marcus said finally, taking a deep breath, sealing my fate. He couldn't risk alienating the GM, whose influence in the company was deeply entrenched. Marcus would lose any chance of further advancement. As for me, without connections, likely forced to resign, he probably calculated I'd eventually crawl back to him out of financial desperation. Ava would never start a fight. Ethan suddenly exploded, dropping my hair and lunging towards Marcus, grabbing his collar. Veins pulsed in Ethan's neck, his eyes blazing fiercely. "Marcus, if you're blind, you shouldn't be working here." In that moment, Ethan radiated an unconscious authority, the kind that demanded submission. "You, intern. Who brought you in?" The GM sputtered, furious at the disrespect. "Such insolence. I'll have you fired immediately." "You're blind too," Ethan retorted contemptuously, his eyes flashing with a dangerous light, like polished obsidian blades. "Looks like you shouldn't be working here either." "Big attitude for someone so insignificant," the GM scoffed, though he looked slightly taken aback by Ethan's audacity. Honestly, I almost wanted to laugh myself. Seeing Ethan's chest heave with anger, his hands clenching as if readying his fists, I quickly stepped forward and placed a restraining hand on his arm just as he started rolling up his hoodie sleeves. I knew if I didn't intervene, he'd punch the GM. This privileged kid had never backed down from a fight, except maybe with me. Besides, I'd already discreetly texted a friend to call the police. Having Ethan involved in a brawl when they arrived wouldn't look good. When the police arrived, they reviewed the security footage, which thankfully hadn't been deleted this time, confirmed I hadn't initiated the physical altercation, and began mediating between me and Stella. Ethan, however, was furious, insisting I needed a full medical examination for injuries. The officers looked doubtfully at my unmarked face. I finally persuaded Ethan to let it go, telling him it wasn't worth it. He was still visibly seething, clenching and unclenching his fists, but he listened to me, bottling up his anger. On the drive back to my apartment, Ethan silently fiddled with his phone, his long lashes hiding the darkness in his eyes. I tried to reassure him. This incident had already caused major trouble for the GM and Stella. Pushing it further would only damage the company's reputation. Stella had botched a major client pitch and instigated a workplace fight. Her position in the planning team was untenable. She was lashing out in impotent rage. The GM, after tearfully pleading to save Stella's job, had his own promotion prospects cancelled due to blatant nepotism. I don't know what internal pep talk Ethan gave himself, but by the time we reached my apartment, he seemed calm again. There was even a faint, knowing smile playing on his lips, as if he'd achieved some secret victory. I felt a pang of frustration. I just tried to break up with him, yet here he was, back in my apartment. He was just too smooth sometimes. He'd followed me quietly from the car, seemingly nonchalant, even thoughtfully taking my bag before I could. He never allowed awkward silences to linger between us. I sat on the sofa saying nothing. Ethan slid onto the cushion beside me, leaning in casually. "Ava," he murmured softly, "you went through a lot today." He watched my face intently. Seeing the flicker of exhaustion I couldn't hide, he wrapped his arms around my waist. "Ava, I won't let them get away with this." His voice, usually boyish, held a surprising thread of cold determination that sounded almost comical coming from him. I sighed. "Ethan, I'm turning 30 next year. You're only 22. Our backgrounds are worlds apart. It's really not sustainable." I tried to pull away from his embrace. My hand brushed against his, and he instantly captured it, his dark, intense eyes locking onto mine. "Ava," he said, his voice earnest and unwavering. "Listen. To me, really listen. I'm not a kid anymore. I know what I'm doing. I want to be with the person I love. And I believe in my choices, in my feelings for you." In the warm glow of the lamp, his cat eyes glistened with moisture for a second before shining with an extraordinary brightness, a fierce light full of confidence and passion. Ethan loved me, and he was proud of it. That was the message he desperately wanted me to receive. I was the one he had definitively chosen. All right, I was 29. No more hedging or dithering. How would we know if it could work unless we actually tried? And frankly, the assertive older woman shouldn't let the younger guy call all the shots. I deliberately withdrew my hand from his tight grip, only to slide it around the back of his smooth neck. Color instantly flooded Ethan's face, spreading like wildfire right up to his ears. The confident, determined young man from moments ago vanished, replaced by a flustered, blushing boy. He caught my exploring hand. "Ava," he stammered slightly, "I really think you should rest tonight. You had a rough day at the office. You must be exhausted. Please just take a hot bath and get some sleep." No. My inner aggressor wanted to press the attack. But Ethan, for the first time, firmly resisted me. His expression was resolute, almost ascetic. "You're tired," he insisted gently but firmly. "You need to rest." Seriously? The moment I agree to give us a real shot, he pulls this "I know best" routine? But truth be told, after arguing with the client, fighting with Stella, and the ensuing drama, I was exhausted. My bravado was running on fumes. With Ethan here, a sense of safety enveloped me. I vaguely remember being led to the bathroom, bathed, having my hair gently dried, and then being carried, still half asleep, to bed. Then blissful oblivion. In my dreams, a soft puppy licked my face, whispering, "I love you." Marcus must have sensed something definitive had shifted between me and Ethan. He cornered me in the underground parking garage after work a few days later. He gripped my shoulders, his eyes searching mine. "You're actually with him now, aren't you?" When I nodded, Marcus exploded. Raw fury contorted his features, his eyes turning bloodshot. It felt like waves of rage were crashing over me, threatening to tear me apart. "I was never even with Stella," he roared, his voice trembling. "And you betrayed me first. You're actually serious about him. You're vicious, Ava, truly vicious." He was shaking with anger. In that moment, I genuinely believed he might hurt me. I tried to turn away, but he grabbed my arm, dragging me forcefully towards his car. Just then, Ethan stepped out of the elevator and saw the struggle. Without a second's hesitation, he strode over and punched Marcus squarely in the jaw. Rivals meeting, sparks flying. Even the usually calm, collected Marcus saw red and started fighting back. But Marcus was no match for Ethan. Ethan might look lean, but he'd been training in martial arts since childhood. I knew firsthand how solid his muscles were. Fearing Marcus would get seriously hurt, I quickly intervened, pulling Ethan back. His arm muscles were taut as steel cables under my grip. Marcus staggered to his feet, spitting saliva tinged with blood, his eyes filled with pain and fury. "Marcus, we were over long ago," I stated firmly. "Who I date now is my business. Stay out of it." "I'm Ava's boyfriend," Ethan declared possessively, stepping protectively in front of me and shaking his fist at Marcus. Marcus hissed, "I won't let either of you get away with this." "Bastard, asking for another beating," Ethan muttered, ready to lunge again, but I held him back. Marcus retreated quickly into his own car. The confrontation had irrevocably shattered any remaining civility between me and Marcus. As soon as Marcus drove off, Ethan's aggressive energy vanished. He turned back to me, his expression softening instantly, and gently took my hand. I found his rapid switches fascinating, so gentle with me, so ferocious with Marcus, like flipping a switch between kitten and leopard. Ethan explained later, completely serious. I learned in my ethics class. Treat enemies like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, mercilessly. Treat loved ones like the warmth of spring. Right? Ethan and I spent the Lunar New Year together. His parents went south to escape the cold, as they did every winter, but Ethan stayed behind with me. On New Year's Eve we made dumplings in my apartment. I couldn't understand how Ethan, the supposed rich kid, was so much better at it than me. He meticulously pinched the dough, his movements precise and focused, a smudge of flour dusting the tip of his nose. I reached out and wiped it off. He didn't blush quite as easily anymore, though the tips of his ears still turned pink. After cooking the dumplings, we ate our simple meal together. I teased him. Ethan, being a rich kid, you must eat out all the time, right? Rarely have home-cooked meals. Not at all, he replied seriously. My family is very traditional. We almost always eat at home. Mom and Dad have a nutritionist, but for holidays we always make dumplings together. Your family sounds really nice, I said wistfully. Unlike mine, divorced parents neither wanting me working my way through college, paying off student loans, then foolishly thinking Marcus was my forever. A familiar pang of sadness hit me. Ethan looked at me intently. Yeah, and soon you'll come home with me, and we'll all be one family. His directness, his casual assumption of our future, made me fall silent. Could his family really accept a daughter-in-law so much older, from such a different background? After a moment's silence, I quickly changed the subject, placing a dumpling in his bowl. Eat up. He popped it into his mouth immediately. Careful, it's hot, I warned. Ignoring the heat, he chewed quickly twice, then spat a small, shiny coin onto his palm. Ethan, looks like you'll be rich next year, I teased. A warm light kindled in his eyes. That must mean I'll finally marry you next year, he mumbled. I didn't respond to that. After dinner, Ethan suggested we go for a walk. We strolled hand in hand down the city's most brightly lit, bustling street. We'd never done this before. Just walked together, holding hands. In the past, Ethan had just been an outlet for my pain and frustration. He squeezed my hand tightly. I don't know how long I've waited for this moment, he murmured. He led me towards the towering Global Plaza skyscraper. It's freezing, I complained, rubbing my ears. My ears are going to fall off. Ethan stepped behind me, covering my ears with his warm hands, his breath puffing softly against the back of my neck. Ava, he whispered. Look up. I tilted my head back. High above, the massive LED screen wrapping around the skyscraper blazed with light. My name, Suhwan Ava, cycled across the giant display in huge, bright letters. Suhwan, Happy New Year. Ethan wasn't one for flowery speeches or elaborate declarations. He was studying business management after all. Just those simple words, stark and dazzling against the night sky. Pedestrians paused, some stopping to stare and whisper amongst themselves. But none of that mattered. Standing there looking up, tears streamed down my face. Ethan didn't realize I was crying at first. He shuffled awkwardly. Sorry, it's not some grand romantic poem or anything, Eva. Then he noticed the wetness on my cheeks. Hey! He exclaimed softly, his tone shifting instantly from shy to concerned, almost scolding. Why are you crying? Don't freeze your face in this cold. Despite the chiding words, his voice was full of gentle tenderness. I looked at him, his silhouette framed against the bright lights. Behind him, in that interplay of light and shadow, it felt like he'd woven a brilliant net just for me, capturing my heart completely. It was being loved that made me cry. Being loved by Ethan showed me what it truly felt like to be cherished, to be prioritized, making my past feel even more desolate in comparison. In that moment, my resolve solidified. Even if there was no guaranteed future with Ethan, I had to try. Only later did I learn that Ethan never went into battle unprepared. His confidence in choosing me stemmed from already having laid the groundwork with his parents. The holidays ended and we both returned to work. One evening, Ethan came home and told me Marcus had cornered him in the office restroom that day. Marcus had apparently hissed insults, his voice raw. Ava and I were together for years. She definitely still loves me. She's only with you to make me jealous. What did you say back? I asked curiously. Ethan demonstrated, tilting his head slightly, lazily cracking his knuckles, and then giving an imaginary Marcus a look of utter contempt. If you want to make a scene in the office, just say so. And then he left, Ethan reported matter-of-factly. Ah, that explained the dusty footprint I'd vaguely noticed on the back of Marcus's suit jacket later that day. Marcus and Stella truly were a pair. One shady, one manipulative. Dislodging me wasn't proving easy, especially after I'd successfully salvaged the relationship with the key client, earning praise from the board. So Marcus resorted to petty harassment. As my direct superior, he rejected all my proposals, stifled my creative freedom, and assigned me menial tasks. He even told the newly promoted assistant team leader, take over more of the team leader's responsibilities from now on, clearly trying to marginalize me completely. While Marcus was busy making my work life miserable, I wasn't idle either. I started digging, gathering dirt on both him and the GM. But then strange things started happening around Marcus and Stella. It seemed like the world itself had turned subtly hostile towards them. They get splashed by dirty water from street vendors, find their breakfast burrito loaded with extra chili peppers. Both considered themselves sophisticated elites, above interacting with common service workers. Yet, they were suddenly plagued by constant minor misfortunes. Wait a minute. A suspicion formed. I looked pointedly at Ethan. He looked up innocently. Oh, that, he said casually. I just spent a little money bribing the people they interact with regularly. Also, Stella went to get her hair done a few days ago. I paid the stylist to give her a deliberately awful cut. She's been wearing wigs ever since. He blinked, a mischievous glint in his cat eyes. A few days ago, that was during the first lunar month. Getting a haircut then, according to superstition, brings bad luck to one's maternal uncle. Stella, what a devoted niece. I sighed internally. But then another question arose. Why was the GM so fiercely protective of Stella, his supposed niece, risking his own career to shield her after she caused such a massive screw-up? Oh, by the way, Ava, Ethan added, pulling up a video on his phone. I also found proof of Marcus and Stella getting cozy. Shameless, really. He zoomed in pointedly, making sure I got a clear view. The video showed Marcus walking ahead, and Stella suddenly running up and hugging him tightly from behind. Marcus didn't hug her back, but in Ethan's narrative, this was undeniable proof of their scandalous, clandestine affair. Where did you get this video? I asked. Oh, Ethan said nonchalantly. I bought 2 identical Passats and parked them near Stella's and Marcus's respective apartment buildings. This is from the dashcam. The logic of rich kids sometimes baffled me. Ethan, that's completely unnecessary, I laughed. You could have just hired a private investigator. You spent a fortune on cars for something so trivial. Talk about overkill. Ethan pouted. Don't say that. He leaned closer defensively, his warm breath on my face, clearly intending to silence my teasing with a kiss. I readily met his challenge. After a moment, Ethan remembered the task at hand, urging me to keep watching the dashcam footage. We soon discovered the real secret. The video showed the general manager escorting Stella home on multiple occasions, often entering her apartment building with her and not emerging until the next morning. If they were simply uncle and niece or even boyfriend and girlfriend, the GM wouldn't have tolerated Stella's open pursuit of Marcus. Ethan immediately volunteered, raising his hand eagerly. Ava, let me investigate. I'll figure out what's really going on. He was keen to redeem himself, to prove he wasn't just a naive rich kid. I nodded. Ethan instantly cupped my face, demanding playfully, So what's my reward, Ava? I paused, deliberately teasing him. How about I buy you another Passat? Ethan scowled instantly. No, he grumbled. I smirked. Then you must have designs on me. Ethan didn't deny it, leaning close to whisper in my ear. Ava, you see right through me. Ethan shamelessly used his father's resources for the investigation, likely supplemented by some less than conventional methods he stubbornly refused to detail, no matter how much I tickled him. The truth was uglier than expected. Stella was the general manager's illegitimate daughter. 20 years ago, a beautiful receptionist had quit the company. 5 years later, the GM bought an apartment in the Jingli complex for that same former receptionist, who became his long-term mistress. The GM was married. His position and initial success were largely due to his wife, a former high-ranking executive herself, now retired. Armed with concrete evidence of the GM's infidelity and potential embezzlement, channeling clients to a company secretly owned by Stella's mother, I initially planned a dramatic reveal via PowerPoint at the company's annual gala, but I hesitated. Doing so could create blowback, potentially jeopardizing my own career just as Ethan was arranging for me to meet his parents. I didn't want to meet them as an unemployed pariah. Instead, I found the GM's wife's contact information through the company directory and presented the evidence directly to her. The former executive was sharp and composed. I suspected something wasn't right when he brought that niece into the company, she said with a wry smile. I'd already gathered some evidence myself, but you've provided the crucial missing pieces. Thank you. I'll make sure he leaves with nothing. I had a backup plan. Anonymously leaking the info to the company-wide chat group if his wife tried to cover it up, but it wasn't necessary. Or rather, I didn't need to leak it. The company chat group exploded anyway. Before I could act, Ethan had already posted everything, using the guise of an internal undercover inspection team. He framed his investigation as twofold: assessing employee conduct and, under his father's instruction, rooting out nepotism and conflicts of interest, specifically the GM funneling business to Stella's mother's company. The fallout was swift. The GM was fired immediately. Marcus, as his right-hand man and likely aware of the illicit dealings, was also terminated. Ethan followed up by filing a lawsuit against Stella's mother's company for copyright infringement, reportedly facing massive damages. Naturally, Ethan couldn't resist a final dramatic flourish. He personally escorted the disgraced GM and Marcus out of the building. The GM left without dignity, glaring venomously at Ethan. Ethan, channeling a typical cool protagonist, stood with his arms crossed, eyebrow arched, looking smugly triumphant. Marcus must not have warned the GM about Ethan's fighting skills. The GM took a swing at Ethan, who effortlessly blocked it and delivered a sharp knee strike to the GM's stomach, leaving him doubled over in pain on the floor. Marcus remained outwardly calm, though his face was like ice. As he passed me, he leaned in and hissed, "Ava, let's see how long you and your boy toy last." Ethan's sharp ears caught the remark. He immediately grabbed my hand possessively, ignoring the onlookers. "Long enough to outlive you," he retorted sharply. Marcus didn't say more, just locked eyes with Ethan, his voice low and intense. "I'll be waiting for Ava. Anytime." I felt Ethan's grip tighten, his eyes flashing dangerously before morphing into a bright, cold smile, like a lotus blooming on a snow-capped mountain. "Funny how people only cherish things once they're lost," Ethan replied coolly. "Trying to snatch someone back is pathetic. Pitiful, really. I'll never be like you." He stood straight and tall before me, his presence commanding. My heart hammered against my ribs. I struggled to maintain a cool facade in front of my colleagues, but I could feel my face burning. Stella, however, proved surprisingly resilient even in utter defeat. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't follow Marcus out immediately. Instead, she turned her tear-filled eyes towards Ethan, her voice trembling pitifully. "Don't you think you're being cruel? Using your power like this? Ava has completely manipulated you." I wasn't about to let that slide. "You couldn't even use Microsoft Office properly," I countered sharply. "How you became team leader is beyond me." Stella ignored me, fixing her gaze solely on Ethan, her beautiful eyes silently pleading, accusing him of coldness, of cruelty. Finally, security escorted her unwillingly out of the building. Honestly, on some level, Stella was impressive. She quickly assessed that Marcus was now irrelevant and immediately pivoted, setting her sights on Ethan. Within an hour of Ethan's true identity being revealed, a business card marked with a distinct lipstick print appeared tucked under his keyboard. On the back, in delicate handwriting, "Can you help me?" followed by a crying emoji. I handed the card to Ethan. He looked at it disdainfully, then looked seriously at me. "Ava," he instructed solemnly, "next time please don't pick up trash." Stella didn't give up. She somehow obtained Ethan's contact information and address, attempting to ambush him outside his gated community. The villa complex had strict security. She lingered outside for ages but couldn't get in. According to Ethan, he saw her waiting there, deliberately rolled down his car window, and instructed the guards not to let any undesirables onto the property. Marcus contacted me. I initially ignored him, but he insisted he had something important to say. He asked me to meet him at the tiny, greasy noodle shop we used to frequent when we first arrived in the city, broke and struggling. He sat there in his expensive camel hair coat, looking completely out of place amidst the cheap Formica tables. "I joined your rival company," he announced with a wry smile. "Looks like we might be competitors from now on." I didn't respond, just stirred my milk tea. "Stella came to see me," he continued, his tone serious. "She wants to be with me. But Ava, I want you to know, from the moment she first approached me until now, I have never crossed the line with her." He looked directly into my eyes. "Is there really no chance for us anymore?" I looked at the man across from me. We had shared so much, endured hardships together, but couldn't share the successes. I knew deep down Marcus probably hadn't physically cheated, but he had wavered emotionally. Those 5 years weren't easy for me either, working full-time, then coming home to cook and clean for him. I had given him everything so bravely, so passionately, and he, in a moment of weakness, had doubted his love for me. After the breakup, the pain had been so intense I'd contemplated jumping off the bridge over the river. Ethan had been the one who pulled me back from the edge that night. "I don't tolerate betrayal, Marcus. Not even the thought of it," I said quietly. Marcus managed a faint smile. "Ava, you and Ethan, the gap is too wide. I'm the one who's truly right for you." Before I could reply, our food arrived, but the person bringing it looked suspiciously familiar. Ethan, wearing an apron, walked over, his face set in a thunderous scowl. He slammed the dishes down and started aggressively wiping Marcus's side of the table with a dirty rag. His movement so exaggerated it looked like he was aiming for Marcus's face. Marcus noticed Ethan too, his expression shifting to one of weary disdain, as if dealing with a petulant child. Well, the young master working a holiday job?" I teased Ethan. "Whether I work or not isn't important," Ethan shot back, flashing his canine teeth in a semblance of a smile, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What is important is keeping certain flies away from other people's roses." He then leaned towards me possessively. "Don't listen to him, Ava. We're going home this Sunday to meet my parents. We'll be married soon, have 2 kids in 3 years. He turned back to Marcus, his tone mockingly polite. "Sorry, brother Marcus, I'm young, sometimes I speak bluntly. Hope you don't mind my straightforward personality." Ethan was a good 5 years younger than Marcus. I don't quite remember how Marcus left. Probably couldn't stand another minute of Ethan hovering over me, cooing, "Ava, let me feed you," open wide, ah. The moment Marcus was gone, Ethan's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a sulky pout. "Ava, this is the place filled with your precious memories with him?" I deliberately provoked him, humming in agreement. Ethan's face soured. I'll buy this place and turn it into a package delivery station." I started ticking off locations on my fingers. Well, there was also People's Park, the city library, the Yangtze River Bridge. "I don't want to hear it," Ethan interrupted, covering his ears childishly. "From now on we will go to even more places. Our memories will outnumber yours and his by 100 times, 1,000 times," he declared furiously. Marcus never contacted me again after that. With Marcus and Stella gone from my life, I agreed to meet Ethan's father privately before the planned family dinner. He contacted me directly. We met at a quiet cafe. As soon as I sat down, Ethan's father was direct. "Ethan has invited us all for a family meal this Sunday, but I wanted to meet you alone first, just to chat." I nodded, waiting nervously. His eyes were kind, his tone warm. "Ethan is my youngest, my only son. We spoiled him terribly growing up. But his mother and I were often busy, so sometimes he can be a bit clingy and willful. Please be patient with him, Ava." I nodded again, listening intently. "Ethan probably told you we're a traditional family, but I never demanded he marry someone from a similar background. All I want is for him to be happy. The first time you came to our house, after Ethan impulsively introduced you, I looked up your personnel file at the company. I saw you consistently ranked #1 in departmental performance, year after year. You're very capable. I admire your work ethic and your character. So I sincerely hope you and Ethan can build a happy future together. As his parents, his mother and I have no objections. Your happiness is what matters. But," his tone shifted slightly, drawing out the word, "the reason I wanted to see you today." My heart jumped into my throat. I watched him anxiously. "Is mainly because Ethan has been relentlessly campaigning on your behalf, Trying to convince us you're perfect for him," he continued, his expression turning mischievous. "He wore us down honestly. So, I thought I'd tease him a little by arranging this serious talk." The earlier warmth in his eyes now sparkled with playful light, very much like Ethan's. A gentle smile spread across his face. I couldn't help but laugh, the tension draining out of me instantly. Before the meeting, I'd torture myself with scenarios. Would his father offer me $5 million to leave his son? None of that happened. He was polite, kind, and genuinely welcoming. "So please relax, Ava," he added reassuringly. "Don't be nervous. Sunday is just a simple family dinner." He smiled again, then subtly nodded towards the window, following his gaze. I looked down through the second-floor window of the cafe. Ethan was pacing back and forth on the sidewalk below, hands shoved in his pockets, clearly anxious, waiting for me. "Go on down to him, Ava," his father encouraged warmly. I nodded, thanked him politely, and hurried downstairs. The moment Ethan saw me, he rushed over. "What did my dad say? Did he give you a hard time? Why did he insist on meeting you alone?" "Honestly," he grumbled possessively. I shook my head, bursting into laughter again. Ethan immediately pulled me into a hug, whispering fiercely in my ear, "Ava, promise me you'll never, ever leave me." After only 2 seconds of silence, he urged impatiently, "Promise me. Quick, promise me." I nodded quickly, still laughing. "Okay," Ethan declared triumphantly. "So you promise forever. And just so you know, I'm officially old enough to get married now." I playfully poked his chest. "Oh? Eager to marry this old lady, are you? We'll have to see how you behave first." Ethan's eyes crinkled with laughter, his smile so bright it felt like stars were exploding around us. "I hope," he murmured happily, "that it won't be too long." And,